Permission management is the security cornerstone of a file system. It's crucial for any file system. It directly relates to data confidentiality, integrity, and availability. For a distributed file system like JuiceFS, permission management is particularly prominent. This is because JuiceFS is often used for multi-user, multi-device, cross-network, and cross-region shared read and write access. This means massive data faces complex access scenarios. Therefore, implementing fine-grained permission management and properly assigning file permissions are key to ensuring the complete security and reliability of data. In this video, I will introduce how to enable access control lists, ACLs, in JuiceFS, as well as some basic usage methods for ACLs, allowing you to achieve more fine-grained file permission management. I have compiled the materials related to this video into an accompanying web page. You can open and bookmark the page following the prompt for easy reference at any time. UGO is a traditional permission model in Unix, Linux systems. It manages permissions on a per-file basis. Each file can have access permissions set for 3 types of roles. U stands for user, who is the owner of the file. G stands for group, which is the user group the file belongs to. O stands for other, which includes all users other than the user and the group. Each role can be granted 3 basic permissions: read, write, and execute. Although the UGO model is classic and efficient, it still faces some challenges in complex multi-user collaboration scenarios. First, a single file cannot be managed across multiple groups. Since a file can only belong to one user group, when a folder needs to have write permissions for 2 or even more user groups, but you don't want members of these groups to access each other's files, the UGO model makes it difficult to achieve fine-grained permission allocation. Although you can create a new user group containing all relevant people to assign permissions, this can quickly lead to a proliferation of user groups, making permission management more complex. Second, the UGO model cannot grant granular permissions to individual users, because in a user group, all members usually have the same permission. In this situation, if you need to give an external person read-only but not write permissions, the UGO model cannot assign this specific permission to such a special user. Usually, the only option is to add the user to the user group, giving them the same permissions as other members in the group, or to achieve it by setting permissions for other users. But this, in turn, leads to an excessive expansion of the permission scope. Furthermore, the UGO model lacks an explicit deny permission. It can only assign read, write, and execute permissions to files or folders, but it cannot explicitly deny a specific permission. This means if you want a user from a high-privilege group to be absolutely forbidden from accessing a sensitive file, the UGO model cannot meet this kind of access control requirement. Finally, the permission inheritance mechanism of the UGO model is not flexible enough. Although the UGO model can set default permissions for files or folders in complex nested directory structures, permission inheritance management is not flexible or intuitive, which can easily lead to permission chaos that is difficult to track. ACL stands for Access Control List. It is a method for fine-grained file permission management. It is well supported in major operating systems like Linux, Windows, and macOS. Simply put, an ACL is like a detailed guest list attached to a file, clearly specifying who can perform what operations. The core of an ACL consists of a series of access control entries, ACE. Each ACE is an independent permission rule. When a subject tries to access a resource protected by an ACL, the system checks the entries in the list one by one. Once a rule matching the subject and the requested operation is found, the system will either grant or deny access based on that rule and stop further checks. JuiceFS Community Edition has supported ACLs since version 1.2. You can enable the ACL feature when creating a new file system, or you can enable ACL support for an existing file system. However, pay special attention to one point. ACL is a one-way street. Once enabled, it cannot be disabled. Also, if you decide to use ACL, I strongly recommend that you upgrade all clients to version 1.2 or higher. This will ensure that permission recognition works correctly. Okay, first, let me demonstrate how to enable ACL for an existing file system. First, we can check if this file system has ACL enabled. We can use the status subcommand. In the settings, we can see that ACL is not enabled. Let's mount this file system. Okay, let's first verify. whether files in the mount point of a file system without ACL enabled can use ACL tools to grant permissions. Let's enter the mount point. Okay, let's check the ACL permission status of a random directory. As you can see, using getFacal, we are able to get the permission information for this directory. Now, let's try to use setFacal to assign permissions to it. As you can see, this operation is not permitted. This also means we need to enable ACL before we can assign permissions. Okay, now let's go back to the previous terminal. To enable ACL for an existing file system, you need to use the config command. I'll just paste the prepare command here. As you can see here, you just need to use this enable ACL option. Now execute the command. Okay, now let's check the status of the file system again. As you can see now, ACL has been changed to the enabled state. Okay, now let's introduce how to enable ACL when creating a new file system. The code is also very simple. We just need to add the enable echo parameter to the format command. Execute. From the returned information, we can see that ACL is already enabled. If you're not sure, we can also use the status subcommand to check the file system status. Here you can see that ACL is in enable state. Okay, with that, we've covered how to enable ACL for both new and existing file systems. Next, let's introduce some basic usage methods for ACL. To use ACL on Linux, you first need to install the ACL package. Okay, so now we can start using ACL to manage our file permissions. First, let's mount the file system. Let's move to another terminal window. Okay, let's enter the mount point. As you can see, we already have some files in our mount point. For the sake of the following demonstration, let's create a new text file. Let's just type some random English letters into this file. Okay, now let's carefully check the specific permissions of this newly created file. We will use the getFacal command and then specify the exact file name for the check. Okay, we can see the permissions of this file are as follows. To set permissions, use setFacal with the M option, followed by the permission rule. User. Give the user named mail read-only permission. Okay. Specify the file name. After setting it, let's check the file's permissions again. You can see here, the permission we added is now displayed in this ACL permission list. Similarly, we can also set specific permissions for user groups. Let's try setting a permission for the Docker user group. In this case, our permission rule should use group for the user group, then specify the Docker group. What permission should we give it? Let's also give it read-only permission. Still for ACL test, after setting it for this file, let's check the file's permissions again. This way, the permission set for the user group is also displayed in this permission list. Then we can also set a mask permission, which is to set the default permission for all users and groups, except for the owner and other, to set default permissions. For example, we can do setFacal like this. Mask, give them read-only permission. This sets a default mask permission for all users and groups. Okay, next, let's see how to delete a permission rule. Similarly, we use setFacal with the VX option. For example, if we want to delete the rule we just set for the mail user, we can just use user mail and specify our file. Okay, then let's take another look. This way, the rule we just set for the mail user has been deleted. Similarly, if you want to delete a user group's rule, you can directly use the group keyword and then proceed with your desired action. This also deletes the user group's rule. If you want to delete all rules and keep only the file's default basic permissions, you can use the B option, setFacal with the B option, followed by the file name. Okay. This way, all extended rules are deleted at once. In addition, we can also set ACL permissions for a directory. This way, new files created in this directory will inherit the ACL permissions set for this directory by default. Let's now proceed to create a new test folder for our current project. Then let's set a default rule for it. Set facal with the M option. Then we will proceed to set a default value. Give it read and write permissions. For our Michael directory, okay, now you can see there are a few more permission rules with the default tag. The second one is the default rule for the male user. Next, let's try to create a new file in this directory to see if it inherits the directory's default ACL permissions. As you can see, the newly created file automatically inherits the default permissions of this directory. Similarly, we can also set such default permissions for user groups. Use the M option. Assign read-only permission. Similarly, to delete default rules, also use the DX option. Set facal's option, then the default rule. We'll delete the user groups rule. Okay, as you can see, the default user group rule for Docker has been deleted. Similarly, using the DB option, we can delete all extended options for the directory at once. These are the basic usage methods of ACL. That's all for this video. I hope the tutorials we produce can provide some help when you use JuiceFS. If you have any questions or want to learn more, please leave a comment to let me know. I will continue to update more content based on everyone's feedback. I'm Hongru from JuiceFS, focusing on creating IT tutorials. If you like my videos, don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next video. Bye-bye.